Today, we're going to make and eat a lot of tiramisu. And I'll tell you why. We are looking for the best tiramisu on YouTube. And the reason for that is that actually I want to get into doing some ingredient testing in my hunt for the ultimate tiramisu. But to test ingredients, you've got to start with a recipe. And so what better place than YouTube? And today, I'm going to make 5 different recipes, taste them blind, and we might learn a thing or two. As for our contenders today, we have Binging with Babish, Joshua Weissman, Claire Saffitz, Brian Lagerstrom, and then as a benchmark, the original recipe from Le Becquerier, which is actually on YouTube, so we can use that too. So what you'll see next is me tomorrow, having made them. I'll talk through the process of making them and things I learned along the way, and then we'll taste them blind and see which one is the best. It's the next day, and as you see before me, I have made a lot of tiramisu. And what we'll do is I'm going to slice into each one a little bit. We'll plate it up before the blind tasting. But I just want to talk about the experience of baking each of these. If baking is the right word, probably is. Creating, making, whatever you want to say. Because I have, unsurprisingly, strong opinions about each of the recipes here from a kind of user perspective. And we'll start with the basics for Babish recipe for tiramisu, which frankly was not basic. This was a recipe that did something quite unusual. It had you make not ladyfingers, it had you make a kind of pan d'Espagne, like a sponge cake of a similar recipe to ladyfingers, but obviously much, well, we called it floppier. We called it the floppy cake recipe. And that was a kind of weird thing to do, quite a complex thing to do that involved lots more work and lots more washing up. And for me, it stopped it being a basic recipe. My complaints don't just end there. Secondly, I like when people show failure. And I think we're going to see some failure today. It's good to show failure. And the confusing thing is in a how-to video, if you fail, you should be clear what the goal is and isn't. In this recipe, in the final stages where he's making the mascarpone cream, he says, oh, I've over-whipped my egg whites. I'll fold them in, but they might collapse. And so I'm going to add some heavy cream to make sure it all sets up. A number of confusing things here. Firstly, what if I don't over-whip my egg whites? Do I still put the heavy cream in or not? I presume I do. I presume I need to, but it's a weird thing. I don't know. It just was a little bit chaotic for me. And a bit strange. And I'm curious to see whether I'll be able to tell that it was a softer sponge in there that actually had to have quite a lot of coffee put into it because it was using brewed coffee, not espresso. But I have comments on coffee to come. Next up here is the Joshua Weissman recipe. Again, this one was complex. There was a recipe where you were making your own ladyfingers from scratch. What you ended up with, and if you watch the video, I think you probably agree, is not really a traditional ladyfinger. It's a denser little cake. It's a little bit sort of wetter, less dry than a proper ladyfinger. And if you look at the ingredients for ladyfingers, they have a lot more raising agents in them, I think, to create a sort of bigger, fluffier, stiffer biscuit. These weren't as big. There weren't that many of them in the recipe, and I'm kind of curious to see how that works from a texture perspective, because you're not going to have that much ladyfinger per slice. Other than that, a little bit complex, but not too difficult. But again, I'm not sure I'm sold on the idea of making my ladyfingers from scratch or making a sponge of some sort from scratch. Next up, Claire Saffitz, the icebox cake. From a user perspective, was a very easy, pleasant recipe to make. I liked the fact that it was built in the order where you didn't really need to wash things up as you go. In contrast, the Babish recipe would have you wash out your mixing bowl, I think like 5 times, which is just a bit excessive for what is supposed to be a fun and simple, delicious dessert to make at home. Unusual to have like a layer of whipped cream and not too much chocolate on the outside. Don't know how that's going to go. It did obviously highlight my lack of decorating skills, but I'm hoping what's inside is delicious. Next up is Brian's recipe. Now, this is true of most of the recipes here, but I need to talk about it in particular here. Brian's recipe tells you to make 600 plus grams of espresso. And that isn't excessive, but it was more than I needed. And if you're pulling shots with specialty coffee, coffee will be your most expensive ingredient, and I just didn't want to see any waste of it. And they were all guilty of it to some extent. You know, Babish talks about managing to get 1 cup of coffee into the mixture, into the cake itself, and yet requests 2 cups of strong coffee or espresso at the start. And again, strong coffee and espresso are very different things. They're very different things. Last one was the traditional recipe from Le Becquerier. Mostly fine. Didn't tell you how much coffee to make, just said to taste, which feels like cheating. The confusing bit was it said, get a circular plate and lay 30 ladyfingers in a row, right, once they're soaked. 30! And then do another 30 on top. This is 7 in a row. So 30 would be like out to here. I don't know, how big's your circular plate? I was just a bit confused by that one. So I improvised and made it like this, which I think is acceptable. If it's not, I'm sure I'll hear about it in the comments below. Oh, I should say at this point, if you're confused about what I mean by the original, we went to the city of Treviso in Italy in search of the original tiramisu and made a whole video about it, the original recipe that you can find at a restaurant called La Beccaria. If you haven't watched that video, it's up here, you can watch it now. It's time to get into the tasting. Time to do the terrifying thing and cut a slice of each one, plate them up, and we'll have a look at the insides. So I have my 5 slices of tiramisu. They're not the most beautiful slices. I did say there would be failure today, and I think we can see there's a little bit of failure in my plating. Forgive me, I'm only human. This isn't what I do the coffee bit. Anyway, I'm going to put on this sleep mask, which is going to act as a blindfold and look slightly creepy. I apologize for that. I'm going to be handed spoonfuls of tiramisu at random, and I will do my best to share my thoughts as they're happening inside my mouth and brain. I'm ready. I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Oh. It's too much on the spoon. I would say that there was kind of nice coffee flavor throughout, but there wasn't the kind of intensity of coffee around the ladyfinger, which makes me think I know which one that is. But very enjoyable, but interesting in that kind of like broad coffee rather than intense moments of coffee. I'm ready for the next one. Okay, I got it. That's sweet. Very sweet. I like the texture. Actually, really quite a lot. And the coffee flavor was nice and intense. This had a very classic vibe to it. But I feel like the sugar's the giveaway here. I enjoyed that. I think the texture of the mascarpone cream is excellent, actually. I think that's a really nice texture. Coffee flavor's super good. I just think that's just very sugary. Ready for the next one.
One more. Yep.
There.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet. Yeah, sweet. Not much going down in the coffee front, actually. Really not much intensity of coffee flavor at all there. Texture of the cream, yeah, okay, interesting, I think. I want more coffee flavor. I don't know why. I'm surprised that I would want more coffee flavor. Oh, hello. Right, our 4th one of the day. Something's different about that one. Also quite strange, not a lot of coffee flavor in that one either. Slightly weird texture to the cream. A little bit strange. I'm starting to worry that I've lost like a benchmark to taste these against. So I'm going to taste these again afterwards with the blindfold off. But that was my initial reaction, which was like quite spongy at this point. Weird cream texture. Again, lacking like a little bit of complexity as a dish. Thank you very much. It's weighty. Density in this one. Booze in that one. Bit of bitterness to it, which feels like that's the one with the extra chocolate powder in there. A little chocolatey. Good intensity of flavor, but I didn't feel like explicit coffee flavor was the driver on this one. I'm going to say all of this is delicious, right? We're in the realm of tiramisu, which itself is delicious. I'm kind of curious what it is I just tasted though. So you've had my initial responses, my guesses. I'm now going to eat them. I have one more sort of comment on each, just in terms of how they are once you know what you're tasting, and trying to understand which one I got wrong and why and all that kind of stuff. But the game was not to guess which was which. The game was just to give you my impressions of what it was I was tasting. Start with Babish. I was worried that this was going to be a very wet cake tiramisu, and I don't like wet cake tiramisus where the sponge is very soggy and wet. I was worried there wouldn't be enough coffee flavor with this one when I was making it, and so I brewed the coffee stronger, and I thought I put a decent amount in, but it just doesn't come through. And in addition, I feel like the taste of the mascarpone is a little less, a little softer. It's just a little, I don't know, it's nice, but it lacks a bit of character and complexity, I think, for me still. Let's taste this one. That chocolate, the grated chocolate on top actually is quite an interesting hit of chocolatiness. That's quite nice. I think I want more coffee still. And I think part of that is down to the fact that this recipe has, even though you're making your own ladyfingers, a kind of lower proportion of ladyfingers to the whole dessert. It's more of a cream with some ladyfingers as opposed to others which have a lot of ladyfingers stacked in, sort of compressed in for maximum coffee cakiness in the whole thing. That sort of instant coffee, I used high quality specialty instant in the mascarpone cream. Sort of feels a bit like cheating. It's very nice in that you get coffee in every bite and a nice distribution of coffee, but you don't get that bite of coffee flavor, that intensity that I kind of wanted there. Very delicious though, actually. Balance of sweetness is great. The cream, the mascarpone cream as whole, very good. I like this one a lot. I don't have much more to say about that. Brian. It's another one which ends up suddenly being chocolate dominant. This chocolate in the coffee mixture, and I think that's a little bit distracting. I don't actually taste the masala as I go back to it now. There's a little bit in this one. It just feels slightly sort of knocked out of balance by that additional chocolate that's in the biscuit mixture. Quick side note, Brian's recipe asks you to mix cocoa powder into the coffee mixture before dunking the biscuits in. We did that, but our cocoa powder seemed to stop the biscuit properly absorbing the liquid, and you can see that in the cross section when we cut it, and in terms of taste, it's like the biscuit just didn't get as much coffee as it needed. I don't know why this happened, and I wanted to highlight it here. You can't really taste the gelatin in the cream, and I'm not sure I'd bother putting gelatin in the cream. He does say it's optional, but I did want to try it to see what it would do. You do get nice slices as a result. It does cut well, but I don't think there's not a change in texture as you eat it that's particularly noticeable. Which leaves us with the original. It's very traditional tasting, but so sweet. This is a different recipe than the one that they served to us at La Becqueria. This is much, much sweeter. So this is the one that's publicly available. This is the one that's sort of inducted into Italy's Culinary Hall of Fame, but it's not what they're serving at the restaurant. What they're serving is not nearly as sweet as this. This is distractingly sweet, overwhelmingly sweet, I would say, actually. And if I was to make this again, barely half the sugar would go in for me if I was making this one. An interesting selection of tiramisus. And as I said, I would be happily served any one of these. They're all a good time because that's kind of tiramisu's party trick. You've got to do a pretty terrible job to make a bad tiramisu. To make an incredible tiramisu, that is difficult. Now, I would say none of these really were coffee first. You could argue this one was, but it was instant coffee first. Good instant coffee, sure, but still not true coffee first. But I feel like actually the classic, if I sort of change the sugar amounts in here, would be a good recipe to iterate on because it's clean and it's simple and it lets each ingredient speak quite nicely. I think there's a simplicity to it that's profoundly important and valuable in this recipe. And I think messing around with ladyfingers and sponges and all that kind of stuff, I'm not sure is taking you to greater heights in the recipe, if I'm totally honest. Have you made any of these? Have you tried any of these recipes from these YouTubers? I had a fun time. I learned a few things. I'm inspired to get into some serious ingredient testing in the not too distant future to try and work towards my ultimate tiramisu. But I want to hear from you down in the comments below. Favorites? Not favorites? Have you tried? Have you tested? Did you enjoy? Did you not? Did you get confused? Were they frustrating? Were they simply a delight? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But for now, I'll say thank you so much for watching and I hope you have a great day.